Legislature is back in session. Good morning, colleagues, and I hope that your Thanksgiving was well. We are now on the second reading, but before we do this, Senator Dueñas, you are recognized.
Sijus Mase, Mr. Speaker, and welcome back from Thanksgiving. Like you said, I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Mr. Speaker, at this time I move because there are appropriation measures that both bills 186-38 and 187-38 to be placed on the bottom of the consideration because we'll do that last as they are appropriation measures which will require committee of the whole.
On that motion, any objections? No objections? So ordered. Okay, the top of the second reading. I'm going to recognize on behalf of the good gentleman from Jigo, the gentlelady and the ranking member from Pago Bay. Ma'am, you're recognized.
Manana Sidus, Mr. Speaker, and at this time on the second reading file, we have bill number 41-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Land, Environmental, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure, is introduced by the good senator from Jigo, Senator Joe San Augustine, which is an act to add a new J to section 80105 of Chapter 80, Title 21, Guam Code annotated, relative to the transferring of lots numbers 7100, 7102, 7103, and 7146 in Hanum in the municipality of Jigo, Guam, to the Guam Ancestral Lands Use Commission. And the request of the author, he'd asked that they move it down to the bottom of the agenda, as he's still waiting for information.
Okay, on the motion, any objections? No objections, so ordered. Ma'am from Pago Bay, you recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place onto the third reading with an opportunity to discuss is bill number 49-38 COR as amended by the committee, which is an act to transfer lot number 258, Municipality of Pidi, to the Department of Parks and Recreation for the purpose of expanding the footprint and capacity of the Vicente A. Limtiaco Memorial Park, and would like to speak.
You can proceed.
Sijus Masi Tatlu, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to work on this bill this morning and speak to my colleagues, but also want to thank the chair on lands for his work in moving this measure and working with some amendments at the markup hearing. I mean the markup presentation. So the Vicente A. Limtiaco Memorial Park, Mr. Speaker, our island's only public cemetery, is nearing maximum capacity, and the Department of Parks and Recreation has been clear that without immediate action, Guam risks turning families away because they simply will be no space left. And for many, Mr. Speaker, especially those facing financial hardships, this would mean having no affordable place to lay their loved ones to rest. And this bill will transfer an adjacent government lot to the Department of Parks and Recreation, allowing them to expand the cemetery's footprint. And with this expansion, the Department of Parks and Recreation estimates that we can secure roughly 20 more years of burial capacity. And again, I also want to thank the good chair for amending the bill to give the Department of Parks and Recs the authority and flexibility to substitute the lot with another adjacent government lot if needed. And that improvement strengthens the measure and ensures the department can act swiftly. So, colleagues, I respectfully ask for your support as Bill 49-38 CR uses the land the government already owns to provide dignity, certainty, and compassion for our people, and it ensures that families across Guam will continue to have a place to honor and lay their loved ones to rest without financial hardship or fear of being turned away. I want to add, Mr. Speaker, that the Bureau of Budget and Management, BBMR, Management Research, turned in its fiscal note, and it specifically states that the bill proposes the Department of Land Management to transfer the above referenced lot number in Tigua area of Nimitz Hill PD to DPR for the purposes of expanding its footprint and capacity of the Vicente A. Limtiaco Memorial Park. The issuance of this certificate of title for said lot number from Department of Land Management to DPR as owner in fee simple is administrative in nature, but may incur administrative costs in the process. And it also notes that additionally, any work on the said required lot required by DPR to expand the municipal cemetery, for example, land clearing, excavating, and/or construction, will incur additional costs. However, absent the information from DPR on what specific work would be required, a more detailed fiscal impact of the legislation cannot be determined at that time. So the fiscal note is in. I also want to note, Mr. Speaker, that we did receive a letter from the director from Department of Parks and Recreation, and it was dated November 25th, 2025. And if you allow me, I know I have 5 minutes left. I'd like to read it into the record or get it appended to the record so that we can put it in the journal. But I can read this at this time if you allow me. Thank you very much. It says, Hafiday, Honorable Senator Tina Muñoz Barnes, we appreciate the opportunity to provide the 38th Legislature with essential information regarding the Department of Parks and Rec's DPR's current challenges, specifically the rapidly diminishing number of burial plots at Tigua Cemetery. Reference Bill 49-38. Immediate action is necessary because Tigua is Guam's only public cemetery providing burial services for residents who cannot afford plots in commercial cemeteries. While the current record indicates that the Department of Parks and Recreation, DPR, is available space for expansion at Tigua, this is not the case when considering the following critical factors. One, the difficult topography. The area features steep sloping terrain. Two, the environmental and approval challenges. The existing steep topography and a natural streamway would present significant environmental challenges, potentially requiring the filling of the stream and necessitating difficult approvals. And number three, potential for delays. The discovery of artifacts during the permit process could lead to delays and disruptions pending review of the Guam Historical Preservation Office. For the past 3 years, DPR has been actively collaborating with the Department of Land Management and the Guam Legislature to secure an essential expansion of the current cemetery footprint. This critical efforts involves incorporating a recently surveyed land, lot number 258, owned by the government of Guam and unregistered, into existing lot number 273. Nimitz Hill PD, and to be registered into DPR. This inclusion will provide the necessary space for DPR to avoid closure and ensure the continued uninterrupted service of providing a place for families, especially those experiencing financial hardships, to bury their loved ones without delays. In the 38th Legislature, if the 38th Legislature approves the proposal to expand and consolidate lot number 258 into a single lot, lot number 273, commonly known as Tiguac Cemetery, under DPR would be authorized to take the following actions. One, to continue to provide and expand burial plot availability for the island residents facing financial hardship following the loss of a loved one. Two, enable DPR to apply for federal grant opportunities. These funds are essential for the full development of Tiguac as originally planned, which includes infrastructure, paved roads, improved visitor access, parking area, new signage, and installed pathways. Burial capacity and facilities, development and additional burial sections, and the construction of condo crypts. Visitor amenities, construction of restrooms and a service pavilion, operational and administrative support, building a small maintenance facility and a dedicated cemetery administration office, equipment and technology, acquisition of new equipment, including a digital data system, burial lowering devices, and a backhoe, and ensuring required manpower is in place. The approved expansion is expected to provide capacity for an additional burials for over 20 years, 10 years in phase 1 and 10 years in phase 2. DPR has identified and completed phase 1 of the proposed expansion, which involves an adjacent lot. This action was initiated to prevent the immediate closure of Tiguac Cemetery due to the critical lack of burial space. Searching for alternative location is currently impractical. The process of identifying, gaining approval for, and establishing a new cemetery would take several years. By then, Tiguac Cemetery will have exhausted its space, and the key objectives of revitalization and improvement will remain unfulfilled. The proposal in Bill number 49-38 is currently the most viable and appropriate option. We have successfully identified lot number 258, communicated with the Department of Land Management, and completed the necessary surveying. The lot number 258 has been officially conveyed to the DPR. Furthermore, the Guam Historic Preservation Office, GHPO, has surveyed the lot, which has been cleared and approved for the use as burial plots, pending final approval of Bill 49-38 by the legislature. We respectfully request the 38th Guam Legislature support in passing Bill number 49-38 to allow DPR to include these lots for burials, thereby preventing an impending cemetery closure due to the current lack of available burial plots. It's sinceramente Angel R. Sablon, Director, DPR, and CC to Warren Pelletier. So, Mr. Speaker, that was the letter that was sent by the director, and I can submit it so that it could be appended to the journal. And I ask my colleagues to please support this effort, as the government of Guam agencies involved are working collaboratively together to get this done so that we can extend the life of Tiguac Cemetery, Guam's only public cemetery here. Sizusan Benedisi.
Thank you very much. On the bill, gentlelady from...
Could I just ask that we take a 1-minute recess and get that letter? Because that's quite different from the letter that they testified, they used on their testimony.
Okay, let's take a minute recess. Legislature's back in session. Everybody's got a copy of the letter. Okay, so discussion on the bill. Gentleman from Talafoco, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to offer brief remarks in support of Bill 49, and I thank the author for putting forward this measure, which, if approved, increases the capacity of our only public cemetery. Mr. Speaker, as the most affordable burial site, the Vicente Limtiaco Memorial Park, also known as Tiguex Cemetery, has existed since 1966, and according to publicly disclosed information, the cemetery had over 5,000 burials as of 2012, and only 1,573 burial sites remaining at that time. There were just 8 plots left at Tiguex Cemetery as of May 13, 2025. With an additional 11 acres of land, Tiguex Cemetery must be carefully planned, developed, and maintained so that the property is maximized to benefit the greatest number of families, especially those who are unable to secure alternative options due to their limited financial resources. Ensuring that Tiguex Cemetery is prepared for the future not only requires more land, but the respect and consistent support from the Department of Parks and Recreation and the broader local government and community. This means that DPR and its partner agencies, the private sector, and volunteers, if any, must and should step forward with the funding and resources that are needed to maintain Tiguex Cemetery in the months and years ahead. The operational life of the cemetery must be increased, and this really is a good first step. Planning to maximize the just over 45,000 square meters is surely needed next at Tiguex. No questions that between the time and resources that it takes to coordinate nightly rosaries and mass intentions, church arrangements, and funeral services, unless you already have a plot secured for a loved one, each of us here knows that the real estate alone at a private or church-managed cemetery could cost around $5,000 or more. Mr. Speaker, laying to rest a loved one is a difficult experience for many, if not for all of us in this room. This year alone, my family bid farewell to my late father, and we'll be doing the same in a few days for our dear aunt, who my family and I were blessed to help care for her in her final years. For the record, Tiguex is the final resting place of my paternal grandmother, my Nana. Mr. Speaker, through the approval of Bill 49, our families during what might be the most difficult time in their lives will have one less thing to worry about, knowing that their loved ones will be laid to rest with dignity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to offer these remarks in support of Bill 49. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, sir. On the bill, are there any senators wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill. Gentlelady from Zonia, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, at the public hearing on this, the mayor of PD, Mayor Alec, president of the Mayor's Council, came in and objected to the bill because of the current state of the Tiguex Cemetery, and said that if they could not manage the current cemetery, why are we going to give them more land without any plans, without any proposal of how it's going to be managed better or improvements to the current facility. At the hearing, we were not able to get those either. We asked for plans for this 258, if it was given to them, what they were going to do with it exactly. And they referenced, one of them referenced plans, but no one else in the room could confirm that they had seen those plans. No one had any plans to present to us, the legislature, before we give them 11 some acres of land. And I guess, so I would ask the author or the committee chair if they would yield, if they have had access to the plans that were referenced in the committee hearing that were done by Mr. Santos at Land Management.
Would the author or the committee chair yield to the question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the committee chair, I haven't had any plans that was referenced from the previous speaker by Mr. Santos at all.
Thank you. Gentlelady, the author, would you yield to the question? Okay, ma'am.
All right. Well, then that just, for me, confirms my concern that there is no plan, and we are just giving them land without calling them to account for the land and what they are going to do with it and how they are going to make good on the promises, even for the existing cemetery, let alone this expansion. And how is it going to last us for 20 more years? Why can't it last us longer? What does this plan say that's going to guarantee that we've got 20 more years? Especially if what happens on this lot is what happened on the last lot, the current lot, where they built on easements, they've allowed to violate rules, the maintenance is not up to par. And then in this letter from Parks and Rec that we just received today, but dated November 25th, it says that Lot 258 has been officially conveyed to the Department of Parks and Rec. I don't understand that, because the whole bill is to convey it to the Department of Parks and Rec. And if the author or the chair would yield, the committee chair would yield, is what is the status? Because that was not the status. The whole bill is to convey it to them. Is a transfer still necessary?
Would the author yield to the question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the land in question right now is owned by the government of Guam. And in the efforts of the present Tiguac Cemetery being unusable right now because it's utilized, they needed the extension. So if I'm not mistaken, there was an MOU that was shared, that Department of Land Management gave utilization, and based on this updated letter that was sent to me because of this legislation and working with the markup hearing, that they wanted to give us a follow-up of what is happening. So yes, government to government is working together to give land management, to give Department of Parks and Recs the utilization. This even extends it further, because in order for them to apply for any grant or any other resources that may be out there, there needs to be some kind of ownership given. So Department of Land Management is working closely with the Department of Parks and Recs. And before this bill came into play, they were working an MOU.
All right, thank you. If there's no one else who will yield, but the letter is very clear. It says the lot 258 has been officially conveyed to DPR. I think that means that the portions of this bill that convey the lot are not necessary. And what they're really looking for is just authorization to use the lot as a burial ground, expanding the current cemetery. And I have no objection to that. We asked at the hearing again, the plans should have shown us if they're going to build crypts, if they're going to allow in-ground burial. We have nothing of that before us. People have questions, is this the most efficient use? And in their letter, they reference, this is phase 1 of the proposed expansion, which involves an adjacent lot. But they don't show us what is phase 1, what is phase 2. Again, this is the government of Guam. We are the government of Guam. I can't understand why the legislature can't be privy to the government of Guam's plans for a hospital or a cemetery. It just doesn't make any sense. We're giving them land. We want to hold them accountable for use of the land in the most efficient way for the most number of beneficiaries. And so I think I put in a floor amendment after we pass on the last bill. Not thinking we're going to get to this one this early. And that was just to if I could ask first if they would yield, on section number 6, it also gives authority that we can transfer any other land, any other adjacent land in lieu of this, up to 12 acres to Department of Parks and Rec. And I want to, if they would yield, just have them explain why are we now talking about other parts of land, other acres, other lots, when 258's already been transferred to Parks and Rec.
Would the author yield to the question? Or would Oversight Chair yield to the question?
Yeah, I yield to the question, Mr. Speaker. You know, when we have these types of issues, whether in developing a cemetery, we're not sure what the topographical condition of that cemetery would be. A lot of areas, if you notice up in Nimitz Hill, is either there's a roadway on one side, there's a cliff on the other side. So if there's any way that we can make sure that we're utilizing the correct and usable land within that area, we gave that ability to Parks and Rec to be able to use what they can and whatever is not usable. Because when you go up to the cemetery and you're right there in the housing division, and the current cemetery expands down into that housing division. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that Parks and Rec has that ability to utilize what they can without impeding into either the roadways or into a cliffside or into the housing area. So that's why we put that in there. It gives them that flexibility. You know, I mean, time is not in the essence, you know. No one knows who is going to pass away when. And these are important so that we can keep this public cemetery open. Because what happens, should this public cemetery close, you don't have to worry about not burying anyone there, because they're all going to be up at the hospital waiting to be buried. Because these are families that cannot afford the private cemeteries. Most folks can afford a private cemetery, but a lot of our people can't. And sometimes we just need to put away what differences there is because we don't have a plan, or we don't have, people need to still bury their loved ones. And if that is so hard to understand, then I'm not sure what will help them understand.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Not really, Mr. Speaker. Again, so I'm going to make an amendment to just remove this section 6. We've not had a public hearing on transferring any other lots. I think having a public hearing on transferring any other lots in PD to the Department of Parks and Rec should absolutely come through this legislature. Very specifically, what is the lot number? That's actually required by law, and that we give notice to everyone, and that we hold Parks and Rec accountable for what they're going to do with these additional pieces of property. Again, the 258 has already transferred to them 11 additional acres, 11 point some additional acres. So I think if they want any other lot or something else, or in addition, that they should have to come back, and that should also be the subject of a public hearing. And maybe then we can hold them accountable for what they've done with 258, or why it's not usable, because they've already said, prior to this legislative action, they've already surveyed the property. I think they've put a bulldozer on it and done some clearing of the property. They've done archaeological surveys of this property, and they all claim they want to go forward. So why are we putting in this provision for this additional 12 acres of land, unknown, up there in PD in the vicinity? So I would object to that, and that we remove that. That would be my first amendment, Mr. Speaker, to remove section 6.
Okay. On the amendment to remove section 6 of the bill, starting from on page 3, line 16 to line 24. On the amendment, gentlelady from Pagaway, ma'am, ranking member, you recognize.
Mr. Speaker. I'm going to stand up and raise an objection to this proposed amendment to delete this section. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, there's that saying, damned if we do and damned if we don't. I want to share with this body that when the government tries to work something with agency to agency, and we're going to question and throw obstruction into the process, it makes it more difficult for us to facilitate, to move things forward. In the efforts of asking for the update based on a present bill that was in this body, was asking for an update to see what is being done to date with the agencies involved. And that update has been presented. And one of the concerns was looking at why we needed to look at these factors. The difficulty of the topography, the environmental and approval challenges, the potential delays for the only public cemetery. And we're not asking land that's in Tiguac right now to get an additional land in Pigo or anywhere else. We're asking in the same surrounding area. And it's not like we didn't have a markup hearing on this effort, Mr. Speaker, and at the recommendation of the committee to place that in as the author of this legislation, I said, let us look at what the challenges are. Let us look at what we can do to help the agencies move forward. Let us look to see how much resources we can receive additionally to support the government of Guam to enhance the capability of utilizing and making a public cemetery more accessible to those who don't qualify for the private cemeteries out there. Mr. Speaker, I'm only asking, I'm not tied to this bill. God willing, if I leave this earth, I'm going to be buried at Veterans Cemetery with my husband, who's there right now. I think that having this august body look at how we can make it more accommodating so that the government of Guam agencies can work together to move forward. And if we can find additional resources by looking at alternatives with resources from the federal government or other grant sources out there, because DPR has an enabling legislation that can allow them to look at factors like that, then let's give them the tools that they need. And with all due respect, it's not like they didn't give us an update, because they gave us an update last week. Well, it was dated November 25th. And we look at the burial capacity in the facilities. We look at the visitor amenities. We look at the parkways. We look at the equipment and technology and what's needed to be able to at least give those family members who are alive the opportunity to go visit their loved ones there. That's what we're doing here. That is what we're specifically doing here. And I want to give the resources to the government of Guam agencies that need to work together to make this happen. And in order for us to get resources out there, Mr. Speaker, we need to allow some flexibility. We need to give the agency the opportunity to be able to work the resources, to be able to have the ownership so that they can be the ones to request it. Because if there is no legal ownership and the land is still unregistered, if you're going to go out and get resources from the federal government on grants that may be possible out there, it won't happen if the ownership is not there. So I respectfully object to this amendment.
On the amendment, any other senators wish to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Tamuning, ma'am, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to my colleagues, and of course, those who are listening this morning. I know that we're having some YouTube issues. It's going in and out, getting texts again, so I hope we can, sooner than later, fix that issue, because there are quite a bit of people, watching us this morning, and will probably watch us the rest of the week. However, Mr. Speaker, regarding the amendment in front of us today, if you look at the letter that was recently read into the record that was provided by the author of the legislation from Parks and Rec, you'll see the section, the very second paragraph, claiming that while the current record indicates the Department of Public Recs has available space for expansion, this is not the case when considering following critical factors. And it goes down about the topography, the difficulty there, the environment, approval challenges, potential for delays, etc. So why are we wanting to even put that in the mix when it's already an issue? You know, there have been a lot of land scams, a lot of land issues. I know my mother was a director at what time for Department of Land Management overseeing records, and she was the one actually that discovered the land scams and how property was moved from one area to another. It got so mixed up and nobody paying attention to it that, you know, somebody was very crafty and moving land where it should not be put in place. And that's why we have plans. Plans are put into place. Plans are given so that whenever you're going out for federal funding, the plan is there. And it's something we can follow through. I mean, the good mayor, Jesse Alec, mentioned how frustrated he was because Parks and Rec is known for not being able to, what did he say exactly? Keep things in place, and that he objected because it was not dignified or deplorable, and these plans for expansion stating it was in writing testimony. I urge you to consider the ramifications of transferring more property to DPR for a cemetery that cannot be properly managed as evidence in the existing state. And then let's not forget the notorious contract to clean up the area. So what we're doing is doing our due diligence, putting things where, okay, DPR will be overseeing this section of lot, which this letter, lot number 258, we're going to identify that to incorporate it into the current lot of 273. That's their current lot. So they're asking for 258. And that's it. Nothing more. That's why this amendment to strike it out makes sense. Why are we going to continue to allow DPR to hold property that they can't do anything to? It doesn't make sense. It's a simple amendment that keeps this property still under Department of Land Management, still under the government of Guam, still the responsibility of Department of Land Management. While we are looking at taking 258, putting that with DPR, and then again, that I have several amendments, Mr. Speaker, that'll address the situation as administrative jurisdiction, that Department of Land Management. But before I end, and I totally support this amendment because it makes sense, people. They asked for a certain area to expand. This is the property, 258, not anything else other than that. But I would like to ask the author of the bill itself, did Land Management have an opportunity to respond to this November 25th, 2025 letter that was read into the record? So I would like to ask the author if Land Management did comment to this letter.
Mr. Speaker, when I was conversing with the Director of Parks and Recreation, he shared with me his communication and working closely with the Department of Land Management. The question is, did Land Management speak to me personally? No, they did not.
Okay, so maybe the committee chair, if they received this letter And if the letter was received by the oversight chair of land, did they reach out to Department of Land Management also to find out, do they concur with these findings? I mean, it's very important. We're taking from one agency. Don't you think they need to be involved in the mix here? I would want that, because we don't need any, the worst thing to do is move forward on something and later on we have to go back and fix it. So let's do it right the first time, is what I'm trying to say. So the committee chair, if he should yield, is this the first time he's seeing this letter today? And if so, if not and saw it earlier, did we get a chance to hear from Department of Land Management?
The chair, you?
Yes, I yield, Mr. Speaker. Our committee did not receive this letter on the date as stated.
Okay. I'm sorry.
He did not receive the...
So that even brings us to even more caution before moving forward. The oversight chair, who's done work on this, just now seeing this information. So, and I don't have a problem with that, because it's obvious the other properties surrounding it. It's too difficult to do anything with all the issues that even DPR is saying that there's problems. So if we can, I do support this amendment. I think that we should all make sure that whatever property is going to go to DPR, even though they have been known for not being able to cover the maintenance on it. But then again, I mentioned earlier that I have an amendment that maybe can help DPR in maintaining their facility, especially the cemeteries, for our loved ones who we visit every year, or even, some people go more than once a year during All Souls Day, but it's the dignity that we need to maintain for these cemeteries, and that means to provide assistance to take care of it. So that's an amendment coming up shortly. So other than that, Mr. Chair, I support the amendment and ask my colleagues to do the same, because they're only asking for one certain lot. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, gentleman from IPED, sir, you're recognized.
Sidus Wasi, Mr. Speaker, and Manana Sidus to the people of Guam. Thank you for those of you who are able to watch in our YouTube stream. I know it's been very spotty, and the policy of the majority has been to upload the session in its entirety after the YouTube gets back online. So just for those of you who are watching, that's what the situation is. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of the amendment. I just want to kind of explain to the people of Guam, because sometimes some of my coworkers in here get up and they raise their voice and they talk fast, and it's hard to understand the real issue. So let me just explain my thoughts on what the real issue is with this amendment. First of all, the reason why the author of the amendment is moving to strike this language from the bill is because we have received this morning a letter from the Director of Department of Parks and Recreation, Director Angel R. Sablan. And in that letter, Mr. Sablan tells the body that DPR has already been conveyed the lot 258 by the Department of Land Management. And so lot 258, my dear people of Guam, that's the lot that DPR wanted to use to expand the Tiguac Cemetery. And so that's why I'm supporting this amendment, which strikes out the language of this section. And what that language does, this amendment reads, the one we're trying to strike, it says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Department of Parks and Recreation is authorized to substitute the lot cited in sections 3 and 4, and that's lot 258, of this act with another lot or lots owned by the government of Guam that is located within 100 meters of the periphery of the cemetery lot. And so basically what we're doing by passing this amendment is we're taking away DPR's ability to, despite what any other section of the law says, substitute lots as they see fit. And why I think this is prudent is because, well, first of all, they only asked for lot 258. Second of all, there's no plans for this property. The mayor of the village where Tiguac Cemetery sits was very clear. To quote my good friend on the education board, "Todd's that plan, let you flan." And in the public hearing, which I did attend, nobody has seen these plans. Allegedly, they might exist somewhere, but the director hasn't seen it, the deputy director hasn't seen it, the director of land management hasn't seen it. And so what we're doing with this amendment is we're not in any way killing the ability for the Department of Parks and Recreation to meet the needs. And remember, these needs they're meeting, they came here in May, and they said the sky was falling. They said they had about another month's worth of burials left. That was 6 months ago. And so what DPR had done, and it came out in the public hearing, is they just started clearing. They borrowed a backhoe from Director San Augustine down the street, and they just started clearing property without a plan. And while some of my colleagues might be in here saying, "Oh, what's the big deal? It's no plan, forget it, people are dying." That's why everything is mansalapon in the government. Because the people who have the responsibility to make sure that we move forward in a way that's meaningful, in a way that makes sense, in a way that is planned, are the ones who are saying, "Never mind the plan. Forget it, just pass it." And if you go up there to Teaguac Cemetery, it almost seems like there was never a plan in the first place. I don't think anyone in here who's been up to that cemetery would say that, it was designed well, it was thought out, the way they laid it. There's no aisles. I mean, when you go to the cemetery, I don't want to step on somebody's remains. And that's very hard to do at Tigua when I go visit my mom's sister, Auntie Jeannie. We're just up there last week, singing her happy birthday. When I visit my mom's brother, Uncle Bill, or when I visit nephew J-Boy. And so I've said often that the definition of kaduku is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So let's not be the legislature that keeps doing the same thing over and over and allowing our government to move forward with no plan whatsoever, no guarantee that this property will be used wisely, that there will be order in the way that it's used. And it kind of sounds like when they came and told us that we're going to run out of burial plots, I mean, that's a crisis. It's an emergency. And I think that's why we had a lot of people attend the hearing. That's why the media reported on it. But apparently DPR has found a way to accommodate these burials that they get requests for, several times a month. And so the argument about acting in haste, for me, it's a little less believable. Of course, no one wants to see that cemetery closed down. But if you read the correspondence from the director, it kind of sounds like this property, they're going to have to apply for grants. They're going to have to seek, federal support. It kind of sounds like this is going to be, and thankfully, a long-term solution that hopefully will be planned out. But I'm just saying that the fear-mongering about striking this amendment, I don't think is necessary, and it's disrespectful to the people of Guam.
Mr. Speaker, in a point of information, with all due respect, I apologize. I'm just getting word. Based on the question of the plan that's been submitted, the whole plan, layout, property map, and all that was sent to the legislature on June 30th of 2025. And if you want to take a minute, I'd be more and glad to print these documents that was sent to us in June. This is according to the Deputy Director, Mr. Pelletier, on the proposed plan for the Teaguac Cemetery, the Vicente A. Limchiaco Memorial Cemetery. So I apologize to the speaking senator, but this just came in right now. So on that point of information, I can share it with you, Mr. Speaker.
Let me allow the good senator to finish his debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the author of the bill for that information, and I'm eager to see those plans that were provided in June, especially because the month before in the public hearing, these individuals representing the agency, just with all due respect, none of them had seen a plan, so I'd like to see that. And I just would caution the body about moving forward with the bill. I'm not going to go so far as to motion that it be sent back to committee, but I think clearly DPR has been conveyed this property, which in legalese means that they have been legally transferred the property from the Department of Land Management to the Department of Parks and Rec. So the bill, one of the primary objectives of the bill is that it seeks to do what has essentially already been done, and that DPR has received this property that they said they needed to expand the footprint of Tigua Cemetery so we don't run out of burial plots, Mr. Speaker. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak on the bill.
Thank you. Gentleman from Tamuning, sir, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to just point out a couple of things in the recent letter that we received and my reading of the bill in terms of the substitute and the sections. And I think we're probably going to end up needing a recess here to confer with the Director of Land Management, because in my simple reading, if we delete section 6, it will basically not commence what the bill is trying to do, because in 3 and 4, the sections, essentially that's what this effort is to combine the conveyed land, which is 258, with 273. And the purpose of that, because the description of what the primary speaker on this amendment was discussing is it was out of order in terms of reading the conveyance. Yes, the conveyance is on the second page as having been read under the approved expansion is expected to provide capacity for additional barrels for over 20 years, 10 years in phase 1, 10 years in phase 2. But if you go down and read everything that it says the proposal in Bill 4938 is currently most viable and appropriate option. We have successfully identified Lot 258, communicate with DLM. Although it's been conveyed, I believe that that's the action we're taking to give the final approval. Now, I think when they go and they describe what the difficulty is, when they say in the beginning with the current records, while the current records indicate that Department of Parks and Recreation has available space for expansion at Tigua, it's not the case, and this is what I remember historically, considering the following critical factors. 258, I believe, is the one that in its iteration has topography issues. So in order to expand and have the area they need, they actually need 273. So when we go in and we read the section that's proposing to be deleted, it says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Department of Parks and Recreation is authorized to substitute the lots cited in section 3 and 4 of this act with other lots owned by the government of Guam that is located within 100 meters of the periphery of the cemetery lot, provided the total area alternative lots does not exceed 12 acres, to the administering agency said lots agrees to transfer. Nothing herein with this act or other provision of law is intended to prevent Department of Parks and Recreation from accepting land from the government of the United States for purposes of expanding the cemetery. So if I can, Mr. Speaker, I think it's critical at this point to get a recess to confer with the Director of Land Management, because if we delete this section, the intention to take the recorded lot that's been given to Parks and Rec, and essentially they need 273, and that's the purpose of the law or the bill. If we delete it, then we're basically just deleting the bill, because the attempt in here is to add the acreage of usable property for the purposes of plots, as they describe in the bill. So I would ask for that courtesy, Mr. Speaker. I think we can get the director on the line right away and see if we deleted this, would the function of the bill be essentially for naught.
Let's take a minute recess first. Legislature is back from recess. Gentlelady from Bago Bay, ma'am, ranking member, you recognize?
Speaker, I'm just for the sake of confirming and affirming what is in the write-up right now, I'm going to ask that we set aside this bill for a moment so that we can get the confirmation from land management and DPR on the efforts that they've been working on and the proposal that has been set to us since June of 2025. So I'm willing to work with that, Mr. Speaker.
In the meantime, I will also check with my office to see whether or not we have in fact received that.
Yes,
in
sir,
June
but
of
and just note for the record that it was sent, I just sent it also based on the information provided to both the Oversight Chair and to yourself, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so for the matter, we're suspending discussion on this bill.
Just for a moment,
Okay.
so we can get the confirmations.
To get the confirmation, but at the same time, I want to go ahead and move on to the next bill so we can continue to do that. Then when we get all that information, we can bring this bill back up, okay? So it's not a matter of losing, it's just giving us time to be able to get that info,
Thank you.
okay? On that, okay, on that motion, any objections? So ordered. Okay, let's move on to bill number 64-38 COR. Gentlelady from Tamuning, Senator Taidigui, you recognize?
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and good morning again to my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I would like to move to place bill number 64-38 COR as amended onto the second reading file, and I'd like to speak on the bill.
You can proceed, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we consider a bill that is not simply about technology. This bill is about our people, their privacy, their safety, their opportunities, and their future. Artificial intelligence is no longer a distant concept. It is already influencing the world around us, the way our children learn, the way emergency responders prepare for crisis, and even the way information reaches our community. Yet while this technology grows, our policies have not kept pace. AI systems are being used by government and private entities without a unified territorial strategy, without consistent safeguards, and without the insurance of what our people deserve. Bill 64-38 seeks to change that. It establishes the Guam Artificial Intelligence Regulatory Task Force to guide how AI is used on our island ethically, transparency-wise, responsibility-wise, and always in a manner that protects the rights and well-being of our community. I want to thank the committee for its swift work to report this bill out and for thoughtfully incorporating my proposed amendments to strengthen Bill 64-38 so that we could move forward for discussions in today's session. With the amendments adopted in committee, this bill will bring together a multi-sector team of government, private industries, academia, healthcare, public safety, and technical experts to plan Guam's approach to AI. It also protects individual rights by ensuring principles of transparency, data privacy, and accountability in AI systems used in government operations. It will also strengthen cybersecurity safeguards consistent with National Institute of Standard and Technology standards to protect our critical infrastructure from emerging threats. It will also support workforce development, preparing our students and our workers for new career pathways created by AI advancement. It will ensure transparency through quarterly reporting to this legislative body and the public on progress, findings, and a draft recommendations. It will also position Guam as a leader in the Pacific in responsible and ethical AI governance. Mr. Speaker, as we move forward, I would like to propose 3 additional amendments to strengthen this measure and to broaden its expertise. Sorry. So these few amendments, if I can, I think it's already in the Google Drive, but I don't know if I'd take this 1-minute recess so that those amendments can already go to the session floor, Mr. Speaker. I think everyone likes that hard copy of amendments. It makes it easier for us to follow.
Okay, we're going to, yes.
So I have,
we're going to need the paper amendments. So
all
let's
the
take a
amendments
minute
have
recess.
been loaded and onto the good, thank you.
Back from recess. Senator Tyree, you still have the floor, ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that short recess to provide my colleagues with some amendments. As I mentioned, these amendments will strengthen the measure and broaden its expertise and ensure that the task force is fully equipped with the resources and capacity needed to carry out the responsibilities and effectiveness. Mr. Speaker, but before I move any of these amendments, I wish to submit for the record, making a motion to submit for the record supplemented testimony from GITA indicating its ability to allocate $25,000 from its budget to support the administrative functions of the task force and to pursue federal and private grant funding. The amendment. So I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chair, to accept this testimony from GITA in for the record.
On the motion, any objections? No objection? Go ahead.
And again, it's very short, colleagues, if you had a chance to read it. This will assist the task force in its endeavor. Recognizing 25,000 is better than zero at this point. It provides us at least some funding to get started on this as they start looking for grants in other locations. So greatly appreciate the efforts of GITA, and they know the importance of technology and the AI and how it's going to move, especially in the economy-wise and workforce development. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for putting that on the committee report as a supplemental testimony. So moving forward, we're going to go to my first amendment, which I don't see it here. It's on line 20, page 5.
I have 3 amendments here.
Do you see it?
No.
Okay. There should be 3 amendments. I'm only seeing 2 on our desk right now.
I got 3 amendments.
Do you have 3? I only have 2.
Huh? I got 3.
Okay, 1 minute, if I may, Mr. Speaker. I thought everyone.
1 minute recess.
Okay.
Back from recess. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they're still processing that particular amendment, so for the sake of time, I'm going to move forward. And this amendment is on line 19, page 6. And it will expand the task force duties to include the review and territorial and federal grants related to AI, cybersecurity, workforce development, and emerging technologies. So this amendment spells out everything of the responsibilities. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a forward-looking addition to the bill. Federal agencies from National Science Foundation to Department of Commerce and the Department of Defense, which have launched new grant programs, especially for AI readiness, cybersecurity, and tech governance. This amendment ensures the task force is empowered to bring federal resources home responsibly and strategically. So this is what this amendment, and if you would like me to read into the record, it's section 16103, purpose and duties. The task force shall One, study the evaluate current and emerging AI technology and their potential impacts on Guam public-private sectors, including social, economic, legal, and security implications. Two, review and access existing laws and regulations, policies, and grants at the territorial and federal levels that related to or affect the development, deployment, and governance of AI technologies.
Senator Tyree,
So I believe this is already in the bill.
it's already in the bill.
Okay, so the only thing we're adding in is and grants.
Which one? Where is it at?
This is on line 2, where it's section 16103, line 2. We strike out and just put after policies and grants. So I just wanted to read up to that point. Okay. And then everything else is the same. I know it's a very light underlining and grants, but again, colleagues, it's on number 2. Review and access existing laws and regulations, policies, and grants. So we are striking out and, then policies maintain, and then incorporate and grants.
So the only thing here is just striking out the word and. That is found on page 6, line 17.
Right.
Okay, colleagues. The amendment in full is in the body of the bill. The only thing that's going to be struck out here is the word and on page 6, line 17. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? So it's right there. It's right there. Yeah, it's there. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's actually the and on line 19.
Yes, yes. Page 6.
Okay, so it's striking out the word and on line 19, and after policies, it's comma and grants. Okay?
That's correct, Mr. Speaker.
Any discussion? Any discussion? No discussion? So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now to my second amendment, the second amendment is, this is on line 7 to 13 on page 9. And this will clarify administrative support for GITA without burdening OTEC. And specifically, it states that. So this one here crosses out, again, section 16104 of the bill to read on letter F. It strikes out Office of Technology, then indicates Guam Economic Development Authority, and then strikes out may, shall is indicated, shall provide administrative and clerical support to the task force. Then we are striking out, nothing in this article shall require the Office of Technology funds be utilized to cover any costs that are directed as a result of the task force carrying out its defined duties and responsibilities pursuant to this article. That is all scratched out. And then it continues on, the chairperson of the task force in cooperation with the Chief Technology Office of OTEC may request for, and this is the inclusion, additional. Then it continues on with budgetary support for Legislature and Guam for the purpose of the task force. This partnership, Mr. Chair, of course, with GITA and OTEC, as I mentioned earlier when I discussed the letter from GITA and their willingness, and I'm very grateful for them wanting to get involved with this task force by not only, being the administrative part of this, but also providing some funding from their office as well to move this forward. And that's what my amendment will do.
On the amendment, any discussion on the amendment? It's found on page 9, lines 7 through 13. On the amendment, any discussions on the amendment? No discussions? So, ma'am, you want to close?
Actually, we just have one more amendment. That's
So
the,
let's finish
oh,
this?
yes, yes.
Okay.
We can close.
On the amendment? So ordered. Your third one, has it been passed out already?
No, I don't see it, Mr. Speaker. It's not on our desk at this moment. Still waiting for it. But for the sake of time, again, just to keep moving, and then once you get it on your table, you can see it. But amendment is on line 20 on page 5. And this will add administrator of GITA or their designee as a voting member to the task force. So we're incorporating GITA to sit on this task force as well. And that's what the amendment does. So it expands the task force voting members to 12 members. And that GITA's inclusion is not optional, it's essential to this task force. This brings expertise in economic planning, emerging industries, and grant development, most especially. As AI reshapes global markets, Guam must position itself to seize opportunities in innovation, workforce training, and economic diversification. By adding GITA, it ensures we incorporate an economic lens to AI governance, and that we responsibly align innovation with economic development goals. And I respectfully ask for your support on this amendment as it's now being passed out. And it's very simple for my colleagues to see that on section 16102, as I mentioned, line 20, page 5, we are crossing out 11 and now incorporating 12. And then further down, we are incorporating as number 7 in the task force, the Administrative Economic Development Authority or their designee. And then, of course, renumbering. And of course, for legal to make any type of corrections needed to ensure the numbering system is consistent.
Thank you. On the amendment, found on page 5, line 20, it's to increase the number of voting members from 11 to 12, and to add as a 7th member to the board, the administrator of the Guam Economic Development Authority or their designee. Any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? No discussion on the amendment? So ordered.
Thank you,
Ma'am, that was
Mr.
quick. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions my colleagues have, and of course, again, asking for their support.
Okay, on the bill as amended. On the bill as amended. Gentlelady from Barrigada, ma'am, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did submit 3 amendments and just would like to request a short recess or for it to get printed.
Okay, we're short recess. Legislature is back from recess. Senator Parrish, ma'am, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the clerks for their fast work and the staff. So the First Amendment I would like to proffer, basically it further strengthens the purpose and duties of this AI task force. And specifically, the first one is in subsection 4, which is page 7, line 6 to 7. And so the initial language says prevents discriminatory outcomes and algorithmic bias and inequitable impacts. And so what this amendment does, it further expounds on that. And so what it states is that to amend the bill to read prevents the following: discriminatory outcomes in the various fields, including but not limited to insurance, finance, employment, housing, healthcare, and other critical sectors against individuals or classes of persons on the basis of race, color, ethnicity, national origin, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, age, or any characteristics protected under territorial or federal law. And then B, algorithmic bias, including the use of algorithmic methods that directly or indirectly assess physical attributes such as skin tone or other proxies that may disadvantage a protected group, and other inequitable impacts. And so what we're hearing coming out in the news lately is that there is an evolutionary arms race with AI. So for instance, in the field of insurance, there has been an increase in claim denials, and that is because of the use of AI by companies. And so what's happening on the opposite side is that, first of all, those that are sick are less likely to appeal any denial claim. And there's a percentage, I believe less than 1% of individuals who have been denied claims appeal because they are dealing with an ailment. But there are services online that allow for an AI to review the denial of claim, and majority of those appeals are accepted. But then there's the other part where then the learning increases. And so there could be this evolutionary race that happens between industries and the consumers. And so this has real impacts. And in fact, I believe we are experiencing those impacts here on Guam already. And so what we need this task force to do is really level the playing field and to ensure protections remain, the protections that we have come to rely upon. These are landmark cases of protections of housing, fair housing, access to healthcare, employment. So these are critical needs of every citizen in this country, and AI is upending this. And what we need to do is to ensure that we still have access to fair housing, to access to healthcare, employment. And so we cannot, we must do more to ensure that we have the skills needed to counter this harm. The other thing we're hearing is that the algorithmic bias. And so I believe there was an MIT graduate who found out that people with darker skin are often already biased against in many, many different applications. And so it's really critical that by qualifying the language already in the bill is good as it is, but by qualifying it to ensure that these aspects are really looked into, and that we can counter these effects so that we can have access and not be biased against. So I think this is, I ask for my colleagues' support on this amendment. Thank you.
On the amendment, gentlelady from Tumuring, ma'am, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I definitely support this amendment. In fact, the good author of this amendment is actually doing the homework of the task force, right, by incorporating this additional requirements and considerations as they move forward. And I greatly appreciate all the work she has done to, study on AI and look at all these other areas that are having issues. So I stand in full support of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other discussion on the amendment? No discussion on the amendment, you want to close? Okay. Any objection to the amendment? No objection, so ordered. Senator Perez, you still have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Second Amendment also expounds on what was already written in the bill. So in this case, it's still in the section Purpose and Duties, subsection 6, where it states, establishes clear guidelines and standards for AI use in government decision-making and public services. So what this amendment proposes to do, it adds additional language. It states, including but not limited to standards for transparency, auditability, and accountability in automated decision-making, and B, requirements for regular testing and public reporting to ensure such systems do not encode, perpetuate, or exacerbate inequities or systemic bias, whether intentional or unintentional. And so I think this would hopefully right a wrong that's currently existing with a lot of our social media platforms, where there is the intention to actually create this bias and polarization. And so what this actually does, it ensures that there's a proactive practice in place where whatever standards that we come up with, and we need to develop those standards in order to really police it ourselves. But in order to, first of all, we have to establish standards for transparency. So what is that algorithm in which you're using that might be discriminating you from the use of an app or the accessibility of an app? And so that is really the heart of this amendment. It's like we need to know how these systems are being used by us or against us, whether intentional or unintentional. And so I think this is really important, especially when we talk about the MIT grad who stated that she was being discriminated because of her skin color, and she was developing AI or apps. And so these experts know what's at stake. And so in order to prevent these inequities, to prevent discrimination from happening, we need to know what the standards are, how these systems are being used, and to not only how they're being used, but also to self-correct it. So in a way, we are responding to how AI is being used so that we can counter whatever it is, if in fact it is discriminating users, discriminating consumers, right? So what this amendment does, it adds, it strengthens what's stated in the bill so that the task force can look into this. And I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, Gentlelady from Tumuning, ma'am, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in full support of this amendment as well, especially when it comes to the government sector of our agency when it comes to AI, and to keep these certain, transparency, accountability into play. It's so important. And even though it's intended for that, it doesn't hurt to continue to remind everyone of it too, as well, because it falls short many times here. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, Gentlelady from Georgia, ma'am, you recognized.
And I'd like to thank the sponsor of this amendment and the previous amendment and the next amendment for really doing detailed work to put in writing what we generally want this workforce task force to do, but very specifically what we have seen across the different states of how the problems that they are facing with the use of AI, and discrimination in government decision-making is one of them. So I thank her for this amendment that actually mandates that they will look at transparency standards, the automated decision-making, how do they account for it so that we will know what it's being based on, and regular testing and reporting to ensure that the systems do not encode, perpetuate, or exacerbate inequities or systemic bias. I think that's like our review process that's being mandated here regularly. So this task force is going to be creating the regulatory policy of the government of Guam for AI use in public and private sectors, apparently, It's going to come back, I'm sure, for legislative approval, but they're going to make the recommendations. So this mandates that their recommendations are going to take into account these issues that we have seen in different states, creating problems. So I thank her for this amendment, and I fully support this amendment. I think it's going to strengthen this task force. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other discussion on the amendment? No other discussion, ma'am, would you like to close?
Just to thank my colleagues for their support and ask for their support. Thank you.
Okay, are there any objections to this amendment? No objections, so ordered. Ma'am, you have one more amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this last amendment also expounds what's existing in the bill under purposes and duties. This is subsection 7. It states, creates mechanisms for oversight, compliance, and enforcement, including but not limited to providing mechanisms for individuals adversely impacted by AI-based determinations to seek meaningful human review, due process, and redress. And so again, it's also meant to strengthen the current language. So for those individuals that have been adversely impacted, what is the redress to them? And especially meaningful human review. So we're finding that even if there's a human person reviewing an appeal, oftentimes they rely on the AI. And so this is critical that we have to assure that we're not relieving our responsibilities to AI-driven technology, and that we're very intentional about how this technology is being used, especially when it comes to any harms that are done on our citizens. And so I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, on the amendment, did you speak? Yeah. No. Okay. No. Okay. No objections to the amendment? You have an objection? Did you speak? You spoke on, no, you spoke on the second one. Go ahead. This is the third one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are on line 11 and 12, page 7, correct?
Yes.
On the third, okay. I stand in full support of this amendment. You know, many times when you look at the technology of AI, the one perspective that you forget is the human element of AI. Being able to actually sit in front of somebody and look into their eyes, especially when it comes to human resources. This is an area which certain AI technology cannot duplicate itself, and that is in human resources. To be able to sit in front of somebody and determine if the character of an individual or their mannerisms are seen in front, that cannot be duplicated. Maybe in about 10 years, they might be able to do it, you know, but right now I think it's important that we put these, the human element of it in it. And I thank the author for this amendment to ensure, to remind us of that section of AI as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand in full support.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, this gentleman from EPAN, sir, you're recognized.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of this amendment, and really no objection to the other amendments proffered by my good colleague from the Love Handles of Guam, the village of Barrigada. And you know, I know the bill's subject is artificial intelligence, but I think that the human intelligence that we're seeing from my good colleague from Barrigada in capturing a lot of the, and expanding on a lot of the issues in the bill is very refreshing, and I stand in strong support of her good work, Mr. Speaker. Sidus Masi.
Thank you. On the amendment, there has been no objection to the amendment. Ma'am? Gentlelady from Zonia, you recognize.
Sidus Masi. I stand in support of this amendment again. So this amendment allows for a human review or an appeal that is going to be reviewed by humans, due process. This is very important because of, again, what we're seeing across the nation, and even the Senate is concerned with this. The United States Senate is concerned with the Social Security Administration's use of AI in making well, they're using it for their toll number and directing people of what they can or cannot do or what are they eligible for. And so they too want to ensure that if a decision is made with an AI algorithm or decision-making process, that there is such an appeal process. And this is going to mandate, again, that the task force creates this type of mechanism or ensures that government, if we're going to use AI, that we have a human appeal mechanism. And I fully support that. And again, thanks to the sponsor for this amendment.
Thank you. On the amendment, no objections to the amendment. Ma'am, you want to close? No?
Yeah, I just want to thank my colleagues for their support on this very important amendment. Thank you.
Okay. There has been no objection to this amendment. Any objections? No objections. So ordered. Thank you. You still have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I just want to thank the good sponsor of this bill for allowing me to be a co-sponsor. You know, I think this is really critical to get this done. I know there's moves in certain, I think in the federal level to have a moratorium on any kind of regulatory frameworks. And so what this task force does is really critical and very timely. And so I do wish the support of this task force. First of all, I ask my colleagues for their support for this very important measure and to protect you know, our people and to ensure that we can continue to rely on access to fair housing and other needs that our community needs, which we know that AI can often disrupt. So, Masi.
Thank you. On the bill as amended. On the bill as amended. Would the sponsor like to? On the bill. The gentlelady from Barragata, ma'am, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill creates the Guam Artificial Intelligence Regulatory Task Force, and I commend the author of this bill because at this point in time, it is really a necessity. You know, AI can help a lot of people expedite work, retain information, but the truth of the matter is if we do not oversee it properly, the use of it can go out of hand. So this task force, Mr. Speaker, is a multidisciplinary body with representation from the judiciary, the Attorney General, the Office of Technology, the Homeland Security, the University of Guam, Guam Memorial Hospital, the private sector, and others. This structure was strengthened through the committee amendments and the floor amendments that we actually tackled recently to ensure that right expertise is at the table, while also requiring that all meetings comply with the open government law, with narrow allowances only for cybersecurity or national security matters. Mr. Speaker, the testimony we received was resounding. Our Chief Technology Officer stated plainly that Guam must not wait until harm occurs to begin regulating. This is a time, so this regulatory task force is actually right on time. And our judiciary shared also its own internal AI safeguards and emphasized that algorithmic bias and opaque decision-making can directly undermine the fairness of our justice system. Homeland Security and cybersecurity experts warn that AI is already intertwined with critical infrastructure, our water systems, power grid, communications, and emergency responses. They urge us to move proactively, not reactively. We also heard from our telecommunications providers and private sector innovators who reminded us that while AI enables extraordinary progress, it must be deployed responsibly. Their message was clear. Without thoughtful regulation, we risk either innovation or stifling innovation with overly broad rules, or worse, leaving our community vulnerable to misinformation, data breaches, and inequitable outcomes. I also want to recognize that concerns raise some questions whether such work should happen sturdy through legislative hearings. Others express worry about duplicating government restructures. But these concerns are valid and necessary to the conversations. But I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this bill strikes the right balance. The right balance because it preserves public oversight, it requires transparent meetings, allows for subject matter experts to participate, and it ensures that the legislature ultimately receives all findings and recommendations before moving any regulatory measure forward. So, Mr. Speaker, most importantly, this bill affirms that as a government, we have a responsibility to safeguard the right of our people. Not after new technology has already shaped their lives, but before. We cannot afford to wait until AI makes decisions that affect housing, employment, justice, healthcare, or public benefits before deciding what is fair, what is ethical, and what is lawful. Mr. Speaker, we must prepare now, and this is the right time for this bill. So I commend the author of this bill, and I thank her for including me as a co-sponsor. So for these reasons, Mr. Speaker, I rise in full support of Bill number 64-38 COR, and I respectfully ask my colleagues favorable consideration. Sidus Masi.
On the bill, as amended, any other senators wishing to speak on the bill as amended? No other senators? No, hang on. Senator Talai, ma'am. You recognize?
Thank you. I rise in support of the bill, and I want to thank the author for really focusing on this. It seems from a review of the testimony at the public hearing that most of them were in support of this, including technology companies, private industry, and government agencies as well. It seems to me that the work that this task force has to do is quite significant, and I don't envy them at all. This is beyond me to try to put in regulatory policy framework for this type of thing. So I wish them the best of luck. I think we have a good panel of people who will be serving on this from the three branches of government and possibly from the private sector, also from education at UOG. And it's very encouraging that GIDA has submitted support for the bill and also submitted that they are willing to do the administrative part of the task force or assist the task force in administrative work, including publishing notices for the meetings. So this will be an open process. Everyone who will be affected by such regulatory framework will be able to follow along. And it mandates that they're going to give regular reports, which is excellent for such a task force. We know, we've seen other task forces, such as the hospital task force, that I think the same author put in place. We are not receiving regular reports from that task force. It was supposed to be a task force to coordinate the planning of our new hospital across all agencies. Very similar to what we want to do, that everyone knows we should do, is coordinate that, get input from all sectors. So I hope that this task force will proceed and that GIDA will assist. I just wanted to ask the author if she would yield. So the Bureau of Statistics and Plans, another very significant agency of ours helping us in planning, had in their testimony suggested that others be included, and I just want to ask the sponsor if there's a reason why this recommendation was not included. And that was, so they did request Department of Labor, and they have been included, and Rev and Tax. So I would ask
why the recommendation to include the Department of Revenue and Taxation, the Guam Community College, and GSA Chief Procurement Officer were not accepted by the committee or the author. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And to the question, why we did not include that many people, well, of course, the saying, too many chefs in the kitchen makes it difficult to move forward on certain things and agreeing to. I understand that it could be difficult by adding more people on a task force. However, GSA, we looked at why would you put GSA there as a procurement agency. It didn't really fall into technology at that time when it comes to like creating the guidelines of human resources. We didn't see that there was really too many check marks on GSA. Regarding Guam Community College, well, we incorporated some educational individuals with the background for education into the committee. Department of Revenue and Taxation, well, we did incorporate on that one. Department of Labor, we put labor. What was the other one? I'm sorry. Because they wanted labor, GSA, Guam Community College, which I already mentioned, we incorporated some educational individual scholars for there, and Rev and Tax.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. So that being said, I hope that answers the question. This does not stop us from continuing to bring to the task force individuals in other departments and agencies to come and sit down and get their views on what they deal with AI or what can be used for them. This task force is the beginning of possibilities for all agencies, all of them. And if the task force comes up with an area that GSA might be in procurement process to be utilized there, then of course we will bring GSA in to provide them not only the possibilities that can help them move things forward, because we all know that GSA is very strapped with staff, and a lot of times things are prolonged. But the good senator from Barragata put a law in that everybody has to take these modules, and I'm attending these classes myself and seeing so many people from agencies who are attending these modules, understanding what procurement is and how to move forward, that GSA is just going to get a load of individuals who's going to know their job. So maybe we can get these agencies to actually do the procurement process at the agency and then just get stamped of approval at GSA. But I'm digressing at that part. But I hope that answers the question. It doesn't mean that because we didn't incorporate them that we're going to eliminate the possibilities to assist that agency.
Did I ask you a question, ma'am?
Yes, very much. Thank you to the author for yielding to that question. Again, so I think there were many concerns brought up, and that the task force is going to have to address all of those in their deliberations. And I just commend the author of the bill for writing so that this task force is going to be open, transparent, it's going to be inclusive, it's going to allow for the input of experts in this industry, and really, help the government of Guam to catch up in this regard. We may be quite behind. So I wish them the best. I think it's going to be chaired by the chairman of the committee in the legislature, who on the legislature's committee on technology, or its successor legislative committee. And that's another huge task in addition to all other duties. So I commend the foresight of this, actually, and hope that they will proceed with the rapid pace as necessary. Sidus Masi. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman from EPAN, sir, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in strong support of the measure. And I know I don't need AI to tell me that my colleagues' stomachs are grumbling, so I'll try and make it quick, as I know we're in the lunch hour. But the bill seeks to proactively address the rapid evolution of AI technology by creating what I believe are balanced policies with the creation of the task force, but also not moving too far into regulation as to oppose the creativity that we need to evolve AI, which, I mean, the evolution of AI has been, I mean, it's blown my mind. And I still struggle to differentiate. You know, my kids will come to me and say, hey, did you see this video? We're just watching one yesterday where this tiger's holding the baby tiger in its mouth, and they're in a safari, and the tiger goes up to the van and gives the baby tiger cub to the human tourist and then goes off to fight. And all of that was AI, and I have a hard time telling it apart until you go to the comments and people kind of call it out. And then you have the far side of the AI, which is where they do this nonsensical animations where they, you know, turn a person into some kind of crazy animation. And so, you know, the retiring speaker had said that we're a little bit behind the curve, and that's why I think the bill is as important as ever, especially when you consider we're coming up on an election. And I kind of wonder, if you look out across the social media landscape, there are a lot of apps that are very accessible for people where they can do, in fact, I've seen a few with the Deputy Chief of Staff up there with Jake Paul. So I wonder what part, if any, and I hope, you know, if any AI is used in the election, it's in a good way. But I wonder what part, if any, this AI will play in the upcoming election. And so, you know, today was a little bit of a learning session for me. The good senator from Barrigada had brought up a lot of these biases. I mean, even finding out through media reports that AI and some AI applications, there's a racial bias, which I think is interesting because, you know, humans created AI and we're now finding that the mark of the maker is all over it. And so I think that the amendments that we passed here without objection that kind of allow for transparency and allow for these protections, and you know, those sentiments are included throughout the bill. I think they're very crucial, and I'm very glad that we were able to pass those without objection. And so I'm very humbled that I was allowed to be a second co-sponsor on the bill. I support it, and you know, I pray for the unanimous passage so that we can, as the retiring speaker said, get this task force together and get moving, as we're, you know, a little bit behind the digital curve on AI and the regulations that I think we need to ensure that the people of Guam and the government of Guam reap the most benefit from what could potentially be something that doesn't benefit the people. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak, and have a good lunch.
Thank you very much. Any other senators wishing to speak on the bill as amended? No other senators? Ma'am, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleagues for their support and their comments, especially the amendments that have been proffered earlier. And of course, the comment with regards to other regulatory agencies that have not been a part of the group, the task force, but there will be subcommittees that will be created, and I'm sure that we can bring these other agencies into the fold. One of the well, I can't force them to do it, but I've incorporated in the bill to ensure that the representative from the United States Department of Defense or a local installation may be invited by the task force to participate as a non-voting member of the task force. So we are trying to also incorporate the military presence on Guam and seeing regarding their AI capabilities and what they can offer our island to actually catch up, if anything. So my colleagues, the testimony received from Judiciary, Homeland Security, OTEC, BSP, GIDA, and every major telecom provider was clear. AI is here and Guam needs to be prepared since yesterday, basically. Without a framework, we leave our people vulnerable to bias, misinformation, data, exploitation, and cyber threats. So, Mr. Chair, I kindly ask my colleagues to support this measure. It's very important, and I want to especially thank those who hopped on to this bill right away, understanding the need for technology as far as being regulated or as far as finding protections and security. I'd like to thank, of course, Senator Barnett, Senator Sabina Perez, of course, yourself, Speaker Blas, as a co-sponsor, co-sponsor Shelley Cavill, Senator Vice Speaker Tony Ada, and Senator Therese M. Terlahi. And at this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to add in co-sponsors and like to add in Senator Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes as a co-sponsor. So I'd like to make that motion to add her in.
On the motion, any objection? No objection, so ordered.
Also, Mr. Chair, if there's anybody else who would like to be a co-sponsor, speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, we've got Senator Sabrina Salas Mantanani, please, as a motion to place her on as the a co-sponsor.
On the motion, any objections? So ordered.
Thank you, Senator. And that being said, I move to place Bill 64-38 COR as amended onto the voting file.
On the motion to place the bill into the third reading file, the bill as amended and amended on the floor, into the third reading. Any objections? No objections, so ordered. Colleagues, we'll go ahead and take a lunch break. Be back here at 2 o'clock. Please, in order to be able to move forward, okay, amendments be in before the bill gets heard, unless the amendment is to amend an amendment that is being heard on the floor. Okay, other than that, if there's an amendment that comes in and is not pertaining to anything else, I will reject it. Okay? So with that, and then we're going to, Madam Munoz, we're going to go back to your bill. We'll start off with your bill at 2 o'clock. Okay? You got it? Okay? Okay, so we'll recess for lunch until 2 p.m. Thank you very much.